You come into this season, your defense looks horrid. You got 9 guys 23 years of age or younger, and that's somehow an excuse for you being one of the most horrific defenses we've seen in quite some time. Then you salvage a victory against the New Orleans Pelicans. You're feeling yourself a little bit. And then after that, you turn around and against the Phoenix Suns, by the way, being well coached by Monty Williams. Remember him? Former coach in New Orleans, former assistant in various places, and most lately Philadelphia. Remember, him and his family touched all of our hearts when his wife and at least one child, not a couple. I don't have the story in front of me, so forgive me if I messed that up in any way, but when they tragically lost their life in a car accident. And I remember, to know Monty Williams in any way, your heart goes out to him. Your heart goes out to anybody in that particular situation. But considering the classy individual that he is, how wonderful he and his family were, and, for him to suffer such a loss like that, it's just devastating. So it's always good to see him, and it's always good to see him okay. He ultimately landed on his feet as an assistant coach in Philadelphia. And then he got the head coaching job in Phoenix, even though he was interviewed for the Los Angeles Lakers job before backing out of that. He got the Phoenix Suns job and thus far is doing an impressive job. Has them playing better basketball than I've seen them play in quite some time. Let me say this. Ladies and gentlemen, they were up by 29 on the Golden State Warriors in the first quarter. Ladies and gentlemen, there are teams that can't score 29 in a quarter. Yet, they were up 29 in the first quarter. It was so embarrassing. Steph Curry was on the court at that time. So was Draymond and the rest. They were getting blitzed. And then, obviously, in the third quarter, Steph Curry is driving into the lane. Aaron Bain, former Boston Celtics, who had some really good numbers last night, slid over into the lane to try to draw the offensive foul, something that a lot of people think should be outlawed because you're coming from the weak side, you're trying to help and draw offensive fouls, and that's just a recipe for disaster, for guys to just really find themselves in precarious situations. Nevertheless, Steph Curry ended up breaking his left hand because Aaron Bain's body fell on that hand. We don't know how long he's going to be out or whatever, and obviously the Warriors season is over for all intents and purposes. Nobody is there to assume that we're going to see anything that comes close to a playoff squad. We're not going to see anything. There's no other way to put it. Okay? You also have to remember that if you're the Brooklyn Nets, you somewhat got screwed over because when you worked out the sign and trade, when Kevin Durant made it clear he was leaving the Golden State Warriors and he ended up going to Brooklyn, and you worked out a trade involving D'Angelo Russell and what have you, you have to remember Golden State had to include a first-round pick before Durant would agree to sign off. The Warriors begrudgingly gave it up and did so with a heavy condition. That condition was a top 20 pick protection, meaning if the Warriors either make the playoffs as a low seed or miss the playoffs altogether, they keep their 2020 first-round pick. That's what you're talking about here. So since they're going to miss the playoffs, they get to keep their pick, and the Brooklyn Nets don't get it. Now, let me say this about Steph Curry's injury. And we made news the other day because obviously I talked about how the Golden State Warriors looked like trash defensively. And Steph Curry was asked about it and, spoke about how it's easy for people to kick you when you're down, critics and all of this other stuff. And clearly he was talking about me. I appreciate him watching First Take. Thank you very much. He'll have more time to watch it now. But I will say this. I took no offense to what Steph Curry said. Steph Curry's a great dude, man. He's a great person. He's a great champion. He's the greatest shooter, the greatest sniper that I've ever seen in NBA history. He's class personified. He's good people. It's just that their defense was horrible. And somebody needs to say it because for the most part, defense is about effort. And it should never look that bad as the Golden State Warriors have looked in this first 4 or 5 games of the season. Period. I don't give a damn what anybody says. Having said all of that, now that Steph Curry is hurt, I got to tell you something. I hope he makes a speedy, full recovery. I'm not wishing any harm or ill will towards him or anything like that. But I got to tell you, I'm glad he's hurt. I'm glad that he doesn't have to play with these bunch of dudes right now. I'm really glad. When you're that great and you're relatively miniature, this ain't LeBron James at 6'9", 260, like a locomotive, hurting most of the people that make contact with him. This is the other way around. Steph Curry is a significantly smaller and more finesse player. And the fact that KD and Clay were not going to be there, I knew from Jump Street Steph Curry was going to get hurt this season. Because he's a pretty boy with mad, electrifying skills who dudes are determined to soften up any chance they get because that's their only hope of stopping somebody so magnificent. That's their only hope. So as a result, you know what they're saying. We're going to put a hat on him. We're going to put a body on him. We're going to make him feel picks and screens and slaps at the ball or on the wrist or anything like that. Steph Curry was going to get beat up. And why get beat up if Clay is not there with you? Why get beat up as a 3-time champion and a 5-time participant in an NBA Finals for a team that's going nowhere when you can rest your body after 5 straight years of getting to the finals and then come back next year when you and Clay are both healthy and do damage then? Why not? Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.